Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to teach you a few ways in which you can do matrix operations using Excel. We're going to start by looking at two matrices we have here, matrix A, and you can see that I highlighted the matrix in yellow, and we have matrix B, and you can see that I did the same. I highlighted the cells in yellow. The first thing that we're going to do is to add these two matrices. And you might remember, or you might have read this in the information that I shared with you, that in order to add two matrices, they need to have the same dimensions. So here at the bottom, I put the dimensions for matrix A at 3 by 3 and the dimensions for matrix B, which is also a 3 by 3. Because the dimensions are the same for the two matrices, we can add them, and the result of that addition will be a 3 by 3 matrix. Now that we know that the two matrices can be added, the way that we will go about doing the matrix summation, the matrix addition, will be that we take the first element for matrix A and we add that to the first element of matrix B. So that is what I did here. You can see that it worked well. For the second element will be the same thing. So we have the second element, the first row, second column of matrix A plus the second element, matrix row 1, column 2 of matrix B. And we will do the same thing for the third element. So it will be row 1, columns 3, row 1, column 3, and we add them. We repeat this procedure for each element of the matrix. So here what we will be doing is adding this to this. Next, we will be adding this cell to this cell, and finally we will be adding this cell to this cell. We will do this for the remaining cells. In the case of addition, we can do something very similar. So what I will do is just copy and paste the matrices here, and then I will proceed calculating the subtraction for these two matrices. Once more, remember that we can only subtract matrices which have equal dimensions. So here we have here a 3 by 3. So the result of subtracting these two matrices will be a 3 by 3. And once more, the way that we will do the subtraction is by just subtracting every element from the corresponding element from the other matrix. And for the sake of expedience, I did this for the remaining of the cells. So you can see here, that's what I did here. That is what I did here. So just check that this is how you can do this. The next operation that we are going to do is to multiply a matrix times a scalar. As a reminder, we can multiply any matrix times any scalar. Here we have a 3 by 3 and our scalar, and the result of this operation will be once more the dimension of the matrix that we started with. So here we have a 3 by 3, so it will be a 3 by 3 matrix. In order to multiply a matrix times a scalar, what we need to do is once more take every element from the main matrix and then multiply that times the element of this, in this case, the scalar. But I'm going to show you a trick that I also shared with you during the lecture, which is if you add the dollar sign to the F and the 13, what will happen is that now Excel knows that it's going to be using always this specific element. So let me show you how this is going to work. Now Excel is smart enough that it will know that it needs to select a similar element from the other table. So here you can see that now it selected the second row first column and it multiplied that times the scalar. So given that smartness of Excel, we can just replicate this. So you can see that now what it's doing is selecting the third row first column of the matrix and then multiply that times the scalar. Since we can do this and we just replicate this for the next column and for the next column. What I did, in case that you didn't know how I did it, is I just typed Control C and I was able to copy every element into the next set of rows and columns. The next set of operations that we are going to conduct will be the multiplication of a matrix times a scalar, a vector. In this case, you can see that we have a 3 by 3 and a 3 by 1. One of the things that we need to remember before we even try to do this matrix multiplication is that the dimensions need to be able to work. The way that we know if two matrices can be multiplied is because the columns of the first matrix will be equal to the rows of the second matrix. So 3 columns, 3 rows. Because the number of columns are the same to the number of rows, we can perform the multiplication. The other thing that we need to know is that the result of multiplying two matrices will be equal to the number of rows of the first column times the number of columns of the second matrix. So in this case, we will have a 3 by 1. The mechanics to conduct matrix multiplication require that we take every element of the first row and we multiply that every element of the column and then we add those. So as you will see on the top, I'm going to be doing this and then adding that to the next element and continue doing that for every element of the cell. So this is a bit more involved, but don't despair. I'm going to show you an easier way to do this. So let's repeat how we did this. We took every element of the row and multiplied times the corresponding element of the column. We have 4 times 4, and then we added that to 8 times 1, and then finally we added that to 2 times 2. And when we do that, we get the result of the matrix. Notice that when we have vectors, like here, This will always be the same. So one trick that we can do is to always make sure that we do the $sign for the elements of the column, and that way we can just copy and paste. So let me finish doing this part here, and you will see how we can make this faster. So now that we have that every element is the same for the column, we can just copy and paste, copy and paste. And you will see here that it took the second row and multiplied that the column here, and it did the same thing for the third row and the column. Finally, for this section, we are going to learn how to multiply two matrices. Here I have a 3 by 2 matrix and a 2 by 2 matrix. Just like we did earlier, the first thing that we need to do is to check that the two matrices can be multiplied. And to know that, what we need to make sure that we have is that the columns of the first matrix are equal to the rows of the second matrix. Columns and rows. And the result of this matrix is going to be the number of rows of the first matrix times the number of columns of the second matrix. So we will have a 3 by 2 matrix. As far as the of how we go about doing the multiplication, we will take every element from the matrix and multiply the type the corresponding column and then add them up. So let me just add parentheses to make sure that it works. We're going to use once more the trick that I shared with you so we can replicate this on the next element. And then we will do the same thing with the next column. So this time I'm going to take the first element times the second element of the element of the second column plus times and we will repeat the trick that we did earlier about using the $sign. So we can repeat this in the remaining rows. So once more, I will copy and paste, copy and paste. Now, all of this is well and good, but there is actually an easier way to conduct these operations because Excel has included some routines that will help you with matrices operations, and I will share that in just a moment. The first thing that we are going to do is to select all of the cells that are included in the matrix, and here you can see that there is what is called a name box. Once that you select all of the elements of your matrix, you can come here and give it a name. We're going to call this matrix A, and we're going to repeat that procedure with the elements of the second matrix. We're going to call this matrix B. Once that we have selected or named the two matrices, all I need to do is to add the two matrices is to indicate the range of the cells that are going to be used. So you need to know what will be the final dimension of the matrix here. As usual, we have a 3 by 3 and a 3 by 3. So the result of the addition of the two matrices will be a 3 by 3. And once that I have selected that range, I can just say equals A plus B, and you will see that it will perform the addition automatically. We can do the same thing for the subtraction. So all I'm gonna say here is subtraction of A and B. Once more, we need to know what will be the dimension of the resultant matrix. So in this case, we will select the 3 by 3, and then here once more what we will say is equal A minus B. You can see that once more it performed the subtract. Next, what we will do is to see how we can calculate the multiplication between a matrix and a scalar. You can notice that here I created a scalar. I just have a value, and then in order to create the multiplication between the matrix and the scalar, what we need to do is once more select the final dimension of the matrix, and then here just to say that we are going to multiply A times, and then I'm going to select the scalar, and here we go. Next, we are going to create the multiplication between two matrices. And so what I will do here is just to indicate that we are going to multiply A and B, and this time, in addition to selecting the dimension of the final matrix, we are also going to be using a new function that Excel has. This function is mmult, which stands for matrix multiplication. Then we need to add what will be the name of the first matrix, what will be the name of the second matrix, and then we're going to press at the same time Shift and Enter, and that will create the new matrix. If we want to multiply two matrices of different dimensions, the process is very similar. What we will do is that first of all, we need to select and name my matrix. And then once that I do that, and knowing what is again the final dimension of the matrix, I can just do mmult, and then the first matrix, and then the second matrix, close the parentheses, and then remember to always do Shift and Enter at the same time. One other thing of many that you can do using the matrix functions in Excel is, for example, to transpose a matrix. So here, what I'm going to do is to transpose F. So once more, you need to be aware of what will be the final dimension of the matrix, and then you can just enter the function transpose, and then to say what is the name of the matrix that you want to transpose. Here I have another example of another matrix that I want to transpose. So as usual, we start by defining the matrix. So this is matrix G, and then here I'm gonna just indicate what will be the dimensions of the new matrix, and then to say equal transpose G. And there you go. And continuing with these matrix functions that you find in Excel, you can also find the determinant of a matrix. So here I'm going to find the determinant of A, and in order to do that, all I need to do is to say M for matrix, the term, which will be the keyword for matrix determinant, and then I'm going to say what is the name of the matrix that I want to find. Finally, I'm going to share with you how you can invert the matrix or any matrix. So here I'm going to start by just inserting this message saying that I'm going to invert a matrix A, and then here I'm going to just enter once more the dimensions of the new matrix, and then I'm going to say invert M inverse, and then the name of the matrix. So this ends this tutorial on how to use matrix functions in Excel.